five star, man. Nobody calls Han Solo a bitch.
Bring him on. I prefer a straight fight to all this sneaking around.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
Oh, come on, bro. It's the wars.
All right, so I absolutely love it when the prior week's conversation ties into the next week's news. Kind of makes me feel like I got a crystal ball or something. This is The Wars and More. I'm Joe, and of course with me is my good buddy Doug. Hey Doug, how you doing this week?
Doing pretty good, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing better. Better.
You're doing really good if you can see the future. That's
yeah, well, I mean, I kid.
Yeah.
I love when circumstance falls into place like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm doing better. I'm back up to 2 monitors. This has been plaguing me for a couple weeks now.
Yeah, screen real estate. That's a valuable commodity.
And you never realize how important it was until you're down to 1.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you realize it's like, wow, this is the kind of problems I have.
Yeah.
I'm complaining about using 1 computer monitor.
This is true, especially in times like these. Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about how good you got it.
And with everything that's going on in the world right now, like, and like, I've been able to stay safe. I feel blessed that that's the problem I have to complain about at the moment.
Yes, for sure.
And then I'm also happy that I get this little bit of joy out of it because these have not been happy times.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we try to look on the bright side of things all the time. We try to stay safe, do our part, and try and get the little joys out of life.
That's right.
That's what we have right now is the little joys.
For sure.
And one of those joys is Star Wars. So
it's always a joy.
Always a joy. Even when we're mad about it, we're having fun because why would we keep talking about it when we're mad? Exactly. If you weren't enjoying it, why would you keep talking about it?
Yeah, exactly. You have to have some sort of enjoyment out of it. Otherwise, you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah, that's why I think a lot of like the fan rage and things like that it's because they're having fun doing that.
Exactly.
For some reason.
Yes.
For some reason, they're having fun.
Yes.
Being mad.
Yeah, deep down, that's it.
Yeah. I always love that. Like, I'm done till the next one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then I'm going to be done again. I'm telling you.
I'm done. I'll be back.
I'll be back. All right. Well, little piece of news here. This is one that I didn't find that shocking. It's one of those things that we're never surprised to see this, but right now, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker has topped Blu-ray and DVD sales. Top of the charts.
Wow, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Not. Yeah.
I mean, one, it's Star Wars.
Right.
But just to put this in the perspective, it's, as far as digital sales, it's 7th on Amazon.
Oh.
And 4th on Fandango now.
Wow.
So in digital sales, it's sitting there. But in Blu-ray DVD sales from Amazon, it's number 1. And top rentals from Google Play, which would be, digital.
Yeah.
It's number 1.
Huh.
But the Blu-ray and DVD sales, not shocking at all.
Right.
Star Wars fans tend to like physical copies of stuff.
Yes. Count me in on that. That's
a lot of Star Wars fans are a collector in some way when it comes to Star Wars stuff.
Oh yeah.
You want to have all the Blu-rays, you want to have, all the Funko Pops,
exactly.
Which is never mind. That is not possible.
No, no, it's not. But when it comes to the Blu-rays, you can do it. Even, you could even have like all the special edition cover art and all that if they have different ones. Every version of it that they like to release.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of people that would like to have all the Black Series, but Hasbro don't make enough of them, so it doesn't matter.
Yes. But yeah, I would definitely agree. having a physical copy is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and not surprising that it's up there on these charts. It's a new Star Wars release. Everybody, love it or hate it, is still anxious to see it again.
Yes.
You want to dissect it, whether you want to dissect it more to find more things to complain about, or you want to dissect it more to really understand it. You want to take the new pieces of information like we talked about last week. Like I watched it a second time. I watched it not a second time, but I watched it again since the release.
Right.
With the new information from the book.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yes.
And it put more things in perspective for me.
Yep.
Really actually made it more enjoyable that time around with a little bit more info under my belt.
Yeah. That tends to be the way a lot of times.
This is the way.
Yeah. Every time you sit down and watch it, you pick up on things that you didn't pick up on before. And it's like incrementally in little baby steps, you're gaining a deeper and deeper understanding of what you're watching. So it's definitely how Star Wars works. It always has, and I love it for that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the way with a lot of film. The more you watch it, the more subtleties you pick up on.
Sure.
Things like that. Like I watched a movie this weekend that I haven't seen since, I wouldn't say since I was a kid, probably since I was a teenager. Would probably be the last time I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, nice.
But I found some stuff in that I didn't know was there. Dude, there's a lot of adult content in that film.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Oh, we've kind of talked about that before, I think. How stuff, when you watch certain things as a kid, you just kind of look at it and go, man, I'm really not into this. But as an adult, you're like, no, this is good.
Have you seen the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie?
Oh, I have, but God, it's been a long time.
So, for instance, the scene where Michelangelo runs into that Foot Clan nunchucker?
I can't say I recall it off the top of my head.
But he's like, a fellow chucker, eh? And they like have this little duel with the nunchucks, right?
Okay.
One guy does some stuff, another guy does some stuff. Well, on the last one where Michelangelo's like does that breath on the fist there,
Okay.
He says, keep practicing.
Uh-huh.
Granted, turtles only have 3 fingers, but his middle finger is up on that nunchuck as he's spinning it around.
Oh, nice.
I was like, no way. How did I never see that?
Oh, that's funny.
Even as a teenager, how did I never see that?
True. That should be the kind of thing you pick up on and think is hilarious.
Especially as a teenager.
Exactly.
But yeah, I never noticed that. I was like, I had to rewind it and look again. I was like, oh, wow. And then it begged the question. I was like, I wonder how he's holding that.
Right.
It's only got 3 fingers and one's up. Crazy.
Well, yeah, it is a talking martial arts turtle. Yeah, it's.
But yeah, it's good to see, Star Wars being successful, around every turn, even with all the backlash.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the more it's successful, the more stuff we're going to see.
Right. That's good for all of us.
Yeah. So yeah, just a little thing that took 5 minutes, but. So Mark Hamill had a little letter that was an insert in the Best Buy release for the Rise of Skywalker, their big collector's edition.
Oh yeah,
their big box set.
Yep.
Which I didn't realize that this letter was a part of. When I first saw this letter, you brought that to my attention.
Right.
Then I looked up that box set. I was like, wow, that's a pretty sweet box set,
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's big box set, big price, big, but it looks darn cool, man. That would look awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sitting there on
it
display.
Looks awesome, but whew.
Yeah, for sure.
That's expensive. So, but I found this letter to be very interesting and really neat for Mark Hamill to do. I guess I'll go ahead and read it. So Mark says, "What an extraordinary journey it's been. Back in 1976, when Carrie, Harrison, and I were testing for our roles in what was then called The Adventures of Luke Starkiller as taken from the Journal of the Whills, Saga 1, The Star Wars. There's no way we could have known what an incredibly rich and imaginative set of adventures this obscure little space movie would launch, inspiring 8 more chapters to tell the entire Skywalker story. For some of you, that journey began with us over 40 years ago, inviting Star Wars into your lives from the seats of just a few dozen theaters in its first days of release. For others, you may have joined us somewhere along the way, from the harrowing saga of young Anakin's descent into the dark side in the prequel trilogy, or the introduction of an entirely new generation of heroes in the sequel trilogy. As Carrie once said, Star Wars is about family, and that's what we and that is what we have all become. One giant community that shares the common experience of these stories and the fundamental values they instill in us. Whether you're a relative newcomer to the Star Wars galaxy or a longtime UPF, ultra passionate fan, I'm deeply thankful for your continued enthusiasm and dedication to George's faraway galaxy, which will continue to grow with new storytellers building an even bigger galaxy filled with heroes, villains, action, romance, and of course, the Force. May the Force be with you always, Mark Hamill."
That's a pretty cool letter.
That's a pretty cool letter.
I like that.
I love how he words that, whether you were there in the beginning or you joined us along the way, and not just joined us along the way in the prequels or, like that, but even addressing the new fans.
Absolutely.
That have come in the sequels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And I like how he refers to the whole fan base as a family.
Mm-hmm.
Because, family doesn't always agree on everything. And the fan base doesn't always agree. Agrees. Yeah, exactly. So it kind of fits when you really think about it. And I like it that way. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think about my siblings especially. Sometimes I disagree just to spite them.
yeah, I do it on purpose.
Trolling, if you will.
Yeah. I love it. It's because it's so true. We all do it.
Yeah, I was sitting there last weekend. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was neat. That's a neat insert. It's different than the. You see this a lot, but it's like a letter from the creator or a letter from a writer or something like that. You don't typically see it as a letter from the guy who had 5 lines in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. Though I will say, this is the Skywalker saga, and he was the original Skywalker. So,
right, I don't say that with disdain or nothing like that.
No.
But I'm just saying the timing of it makes this one even more special because it's someone who was super heavily involved in the originals.
Right.
Not at all involved in the prequels. And then only lightly involved in the sequels.
Yeah. I mean, I would say he had quite a bit of involvement in episode 8, but obviously not like his involvement was obviously not like it was in 4, 5, and 6. So, that being said, he is definitely he has never wavered from this franchise. He's embraced it. he is always loved it. He's always loved the fan. Ultra passionate fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's appropriate that he's the one kind of putting a letter out there to all fans. Just really cool. I don't know.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because this is with a release that is highlighting the sequel trilogy at this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the only reason I worded it that way.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I was just highlighting the fact that it was an actor and not the writer or creator or director. It's uncommon to see a letter from one of the actors in something like this.
Yeah, that's true.
You would typically see something from the writer, the original writer, even.
Yeah. George.
Right. Well, I wasn't going like just Star Wars, but like you would get a letter from the writer of a book who is thanking you for embracing his stories in another medium,
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Oh, I got you. Yep.
So just from an actor, it's different, and it's a neat addition, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Totally.
That was the moral there. Is it's a neat addition. I'd almost want it just for that,
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I thought that was cool.
Definitely.
Well, we talked about the sequel trilogy pretty extensively last week, and about our thoughts on its cohesion.
Yep.
Throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on Light the Fuse podcast, it's a Mission Impossible podcast.
Okay.
They had, make sure I get these names right. Marianne Brandon and Mary Jo Markey they were two editors that worked on The Force Awakens, and Mary Jo Markey returned for episode 9 as well.
Right.
So they had some comments on the middle chapter, The Last Jedi. So Marianne Brandon said it was a different take on the Star Wars saga. To Ryan's credit, he stuck to what he wanted to do, and he wanted to deconstruct the film and go a different direction. And I know it's controversial, but isn't that good?
I guess it all depends on your point of view.
There you go.
Yeah.
So from a certain point of view, sure, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea of a creator sticking to his guns, and if he wants to take something a new direction and he does that, then yeah, I guess that's good. He's sticking to his creative idea.
Right.
Which is respectable. I guess respectable is the good term to use there.
Sure.
Things can be respectable, but not always good. And, things can be good, but not always respectable.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I've said that before, that it is respectable that Ryan, did what he wanted to do, and that was that. You can respect that. He wanted to create a certain thing, and he did that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he did what he set out to do, for sure.
Yeah, whether you like it or not is a different question.
Exactly.
But you got to respect the, from a creative aspect, an artist should always do what the artist wants to do, because that's what art is.
Yeah, it's just a matter of whether or not the artist is put in charge of one thing or another, and what they want to do works in a certain venue. So
yeah, I mean, if you get tasked to recreate Starry Night and you make a different one, you're going to get some feedback.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you do an interpretation of a classic piece of artwork, and all those who love and are passionate about that original piece of artwork, they're going to look at this new one and say, well, that's not how it should be.
Right.
So, I those things sound very similar to what we saw a lot, as far as the family, the fan base, right? To bring what Mark said into this. So,
and of course, people are going to appreciate the change as well.
yes.
So some people like it, some people don't, and that's fine.
Yep.
You like it, cool. You don't, cool.
Right.
Doesn't give either side the right to insult the other side.
Exactly. In the end,
But-
we're all fans. We wouldn't be passionate about it like that if we weren't.
If you like it, don't watch it. If you like it, watch it. If you don't.
Right.
That's the way that works.
Yep.
Yeah, as consumers of art, you can also like what you like. You don't have to be, you don't have to follow a trend.
Exactly.
You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. It's art,
Yeah. I do like that about it, because the fact that if everybody just agreed, then it becomes some sort of like watered down homogeneous product that, if everyone's just, yeah, it was good, it just becomes less exciting. There's less debate. If there's less, less passion about it, then, it becomes something less, I guess.
Right. I mean, so there are very few things in this world that everybody agrees on.
Very true.
Right. Very few things. I mean, I think one of those things is that you need water to live. I think everybody would agree on that.
Right.
Yeah. But that's where it ends. I mean,
Yeah.
The best tasting water is a different thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So, yeah, people aren't going to agree on everything, and that goes for just people in general. That also goes for a fandom.
Yeah,
And a
for
fandom,
sure.
we're not all going to like the same thing. Once so much of it starts to come out, there's just going to be stuff we don't like.
Yep.
And there's not a problem with that. We've been very vocal about the stuff we don't like in The Last Jedi, and we've been very vocal about the stuff we do like.
Yeah.
So, take with that what you will, but hey, I like what I like, you like what you like, cool. We can agree to disagree on certain things, but whatever. I respect other people's opinion, and, I expect the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. But Mary Jo Markey had something else to say.
Ah, okay.
So she said, it's very strange to have the second film so consciously undo the storytelling of the first film. I'm sorry, that's what it felt like. I don't even feel like that's true about the third film. It took where the second film ended and tried to tell a story. I didn't feel like it was consciously trying to. I didn't feel that in that way. So, and then she went on in that to say, the sequel trilogy lacked a singular vision, which is something we talked about last
Yeah, I
week.
was
That's
gonna
why I
say-
said the crystal ball thing.
Yeah, wait a minute. She was listening to our show. I'm kidding.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, doubt it.
Doubt it.
She sounded like that, she said that with a lot of conviction. So
Yeah.
those were her own thoughts.
I have a feeling that this is something that she's probably put a great deal of thought into, and has a lot of conviction behind here. This is,
I mean, she is an editor.
yeah, and I have to say, this does echo pretty much what we were saying about these films in sequence when you think about it. It's the first and the third kind of follow along a path, and you know, we take a detour for the second of this trilogy. So it's,
I will disagree with her to one of her points,
which is what?
Maybe not as a whole, but she says she don't feel like that it's true. The third film tried to undo anything from the second film. I disagree with that.
Oh,
I believe there were conscious decisions in there to change things from The Last Jedi. So I disagree with her there. I think that is a little bias on her part.
I would disagree with you. I think they acknowledged some of the things that made The Last Jedi feel like it came out of left field. They acknowledged these things and tried to help course correct within The Rise of Skywalker. Which, looking at it, can feel like they were just kind of like thumbing their nose to it.
I don't think it was major. The point I'm making, I don't feel like there was any major plot points that they tried to undo.
Right.
I think major plot point wise, sure, they just tried to advance the story.
Yes.
Okay. I will agree with that. But there are, in my opinion, conscious efforts to, like you said, kind of thumb their nose at it. I'm sorry, Luke Skywalker's line and Rey throwing that lightsaber was a definite thumb of the nose to The Last Jedi. That felt very deliberate.
I would definitely agree that it felt deliberate, but it all works within the context of the trilogy. So
yeah, as far as like some of the other things that people think is effort to, retcon The Last Jedi, like the Snoke thing, I don't think that's a attempt to retcon. I think it's an attempt to make a villain for the, to make a big bad, because I think watching the trilogy as a whole, I think Kylo Ren's redemption was an idea from the start.
Yeah, I think
something
so
they wanted to work towards.
Yes.
Therefore, they needed a big bad. And by Snoke being killed off in the second one, they had to establish a new one. A new old one.
Or an old one, yeah. So, and it only makes sense that the polar opposite from the Skywalkers, be that big bad in the end. Now, there are those who would like to think that, for whatever reason, I don't understand the motivation, to be honest, that, JJ didn't have this idea of Palpatine coming back from the beginning. And maybe he didn't, maybe he did, I don't know, but it works. When all is said and done, it does work. I just feel like there was enough stuff coming out of left field in The Last Jedi that they had to acknowledge or explain in The Rise of Skywalker, that it made The Rise of Skywalker feel rushed or jam-packed. And that's the biggest fault in the movie. If they could have had a little more time to breathe with it, probably would have worked out better. But I've said it before, and I'm going to stick with it. I think The Rise of Skywalker was the best movie we could have had as the final chapter in lieu of episode 8.
Yeah, I mean, and I've said this before, I felt like episode 8 felt like more of a starting point than a middle chapter. Like, you could have done so much more with with the direction episode 8 took it if that was the start.
Yeah. Yeah,
if you had 2 more films to tell that story, you could make that better.
You know, it's funny because just as you were saying that, I had this thought pop into my head. Even if you leave episode 8 where it was, you could have, like, you know, one conclusion could be episode 9, but you could also branch off of episode 8 and have an alternate episode 9 and 10 or something like that following the episode 8 that we got, almost from like another dimension, you know? No, do you get what I'm saying though? Because it's like you started off with The Force Awakens, then we hit episode 8, and it's almost like it's just going off in its own direction, and it could have been something completely different. It's I don't know. It's kind of strange.
Well, I would say, given the lack of direction that you had in the beginning, the lack of a singular vision, like she said.
Yes, and we've said before too. Yes.
I mean, and the lack of a singular vision, I mean, it goes all the way back to the start of the sequel trilogy.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, The Force Awakens tried to echo A New Hope in too many ways. Like it was supposed to feel like a complete movie, you know, doesn't necessarily need a sequel, you know, things like that. There were aspects of that, right?
Yeah.
Tried to be like A New Hope was, where A New Hope was meant to be one movie. Like it was written like there was not going to be any more.
Only because they didn't know if they'd be able to make another one.
Right.
You know.
So they tried to echo that with The Force Awakens, which creates its own set of problems.
Yes. And
you know, you're doing a trilogy, you don't have to write it like that. Okay. You don't have to try and wrap stuff up with a neat little bow. It can continue, right?
True.
There seemed to be an effort to kind of do that, even though it didn't do that.
I was going to say, we were left with some lingering questions at the end of The Force Awakens.
But they were lingering questions in the same way that there were lingering questions at the end of A New Hope. It could end there.
Yeah.
But there's stuff to tell.
I was going to say, there was definite stuff to tell. I mean, we're left with Rey and Luke standing on an island facing each other. I mean, that would be the exception to that. You know, the exception to that formula would be that one scene. Yeah.
But I'm talking the destruction of Starkiller Base, a seeming win for the good guys.
Right.
You know, that neat little A New Hope kind of finish.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you.
You know, you took out this big super weapon. That was a huge feat. Huge feat.
Yeah, yeah.
So you didn't necessarily need a huge feat in the opening chapter.
Agreed.
You know, there was no Death Star in The Phantom Menace.
It's true.
You know, they defeated Darth Maul, but Darth Maul was set up the whole way as an apprentice.
I think I see what you're saying here. So if you're talking about mirroring story beats, if episode 7 would have kind of mirrored the story beats of episode 1, we might have been left in a better place
for chapter 2.
Yeah. Or 8.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like chapter 2 of that trilogy.
The middle portion. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you were going to pick a film to kind of emulate in the way it should flow, episode 1 probably would have been a better pick than episode 4. Episode 4 was meant to be, they didn't know they were going to get to do this again. So it was meant to be a singular film, standalone.
Yes.
They tried to mirror that in episode 7 unnecessarily.
That's a very interesting thought, and I kind of like it because you could see where you could have similar, call them story beats, I guess, between Anakin and Rey in their discovery of this power they have and how they're going to use it and moving forward. And you might have been able to explore the character of Rey a lot deeper if you'd have gone that route. I kind of like this thought. This train of thought's kind of nice. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, there was no sense of this was the only movie with episode 1, right?
Right.
Like I said, they even set up the big bad in that as the apprentice. Not the big bad, but like their victory was over an apprentice.
Yes.
To a Sith.
Yeah.
Not a Sith Lord.
They didn't know it, but yeah.
Yeah. But we did.
Right.
We did. My apprentice, Darth Maul. I'm sending my apprentice, Darth Maul. It was said several times.
Oh, yeah.
It's you had this overarching big bad. You had this, they tried to mirror that, taking down this gigantic thing, this huge victory. In the end of episode 1, they don't even feel it. I mean, yeah, you have this celebration because they liberate Naboo, but there's this overarching doom.
Yes.
Because the Sith Lord is still out there, and they only got his learner. Heck, even in episode 4, Vader was spinning off into space. You don't know if he's going to be okay. Kylo Ren was left bleeding in the snow.
Yeah.
You don't know he's going to be all right.
Right.
You don't even know if he got off the planet with the way they finished that.
Yeah.
I mean, they say, get Kylo Ren, bring him to me.
Yeah, yeah.
The story could have went, they didn't get to him in time.
But
they blew it up.
I like the thought of, we could have ended episode 7 kind of this idea that, maybe Rey's discovering all this power she has, and then maybe there's a question as to whether or not she's going to go to the light or the dark at the end of episode 7, something like that. Digging deeper into her exploration of the Force. That man, I'm kind of liking these thoughts here. It's good. Like,
you finish episode 7 with this like huge victory for the Resistance.
Yeah.
And then you follow. The problem is you followed up with this massive victory for the First Order. Like, the Empire's victory in The Empire Strikes Back was, big for them, but it didn't wipe out the rebellion.
Right. Yeah, this is true.
So you have one guy coming in that wants to do what was done before, maybe too far. And then you bring in the next guy and he wants to be a visionary to try and drive something into the future, perhaps too much.
Yes. You're right.
It's not a J.J. Abrams' fault. It's not a Rian Johnson's fault. It is a Disney Lucasfilm fault for not having a vision for where this thing should go.
Yes.
They wanted to try and capture the old audience with familiar too much in the first one.
Yep.
And then it's like, okay, now we'll go on and tell a new story. Well, you did this. Now everybody's pissed you're trying to tell a new story because you just tried to grab everyone with familiar.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
So it's not Rian Johnson's fault. It's not J.J. Abrams' fault. This is the fault of the bigwigs.
Yes, agreed.
Because
there.
we've said time and time again that standalone, both these films are good films.
Yeah. What's funny?
Standalone, not part of the story that you put out there in The Force Awakens. Standalone, and not part of the Skywalker saga, as you word it. The Last Jedi would be a fantastic Star Wars film.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good elements in there, a lot of good stuff.
It agreed. And it's funny, you just made me think about this too. Is each one of these sequel films, by the end of it, everything does kind of get wrapped up at the end of each film to a certain degree. I mean,
and then you get to the third installment and you're like, oh crap, we got to tell a story.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to tell a story that makes it all seem like we meant to do this all along. And then you're surprised that it's a jumbled mess.
I don't know if I'd go that far even as to say it's a jumbled mess, but it's just
You know what I mean.
jam-packed with information. Yeah, I do. But
I don't mean jumbled messes is terrible film.
Right.
It's not. But it is a jumbled mess of information.
Yeah.
There's too much going on in too short of a period of time.
Yes.
They would have been better served by not constricting themselves to a trilogy and doing 2 more films. Or 1 more, So doing 4 films to wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Something I was against for the longest time. Then I saw The Rise of Skywalker and I'm like, Doug was right. We should have done 2 films.
Well, thank you for saying so. Because I still feel that way. Yes, it could have probably played out a little better for everyone, and everyone would have gotten a little more of what they wanted out of this if it would have stretched.
Whether
over
you do
to,
a part 1 and a part 2 or a 9 and 10,
right?
Regardless, it doesn't matter. The format there, how you want to word it. But it needed to finish that story.
Yeah. Although I will say I'm still happy with what we got. So
yeah,
it does work for me.
The highlight obviously is the new characters.
Yeah. Well,
the
absolutely.
new characters are the highlight of this. That's what if you attach yourself to that, it all gets better.
Yeah. And
if you try to connect it too much to what came before, that's where it falls apart a little bit.
I will say it's only after The Rise of Skywalker that I feel like, okay, cool. Now give us some more stories with this new trio, basically.
Yeah.
Rey, Finn, and Poe. I would love to see what's next with those characters without the classic characters, sans Chewie, but
right. Yeah, I mean, and this film left you wanting Finn's story too much. Like,
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I mean, he never got to tell his story.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. We could go on for days with this.
Yeah, we could. But it is interesting to hear that the editors of the film kind of felt the same way we did, I'd venture to say. So
yeah, and it's that and the thing that stuck with me most in this is those words, lack of a singular vision.
Yeah. Because that's
they needed one vision from start to finish. They didn't have that. I couldn't agree with that more. And that comes through loud and clear.
Absolutely.
That there was not one vision. I think pointing the blame at one person or another is a fault, because I don't think that this director or this writer or that writer are to blame for this. I think it's the company as a whole for not having goals set from the start.
Exactly.
Whether it be, bringing in all the people that you want to write this thing to collaborate. I I know that's a hard word, but I think collaboration would have been a better course of action.
Yeah.
Especially since Ryan's writing the second chapter while the first one's being made.
Yes. So
it's very obvious these two didn't really talk.
True. What I think we're seeing now, with the High Republic stuff, they shown us that video with all the writers of the authors sitting around a table, throwing ideas around, kicking concepts back and forth between each other and kind of like, getting an overview, broad outline of where they're all going to go with their stories.
Yeah, where was that shit?
Needed to happen before the sequel trilogy. Yes, exactly. That would have been very helpful, I do believe. So,
just a little.
Yeah.
And not and sure they had that a little bit with the story group. But
yeah, but that's also the story group, I believe, was this entity that first JJ, then Ryan, then JJ got to utilize and kind of, it's one of those things where they say, hey, I want to do this, and we, oh no, you can't do that because this happened in the past or whatever. They're kind of like, they are the guardians of the canon, so to speak.
Right. They were the Star Wars fact checkers.
Yes, exactly.
They weren't creative control at all.
Yes. So I would have loved to have seen JJ, Ryan, Kathy Kennedy, story group in a situation like they shown us with the High Republic prior to the sequel trilogy, like being written, and then go
and
forth.
Maybe that is a result of what happened.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. We're gonna
like, hey, maybe we should all be on the same page.
Exactly. Before we get started. Yeah.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah. What an idea. Good concept.
And then not only that, but how many writers did you have mixed in along the way that you used some of their material? Like you had Michael Arndt, you had
Colin Trevorrow.
Colin Trevorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Maybe what we're gonna find out is that they've learned from all of this and they're gonna go about making Star Wars in a new way. Hopefully that's what we'll get to see. So yeah, my bold statement for this episode is a better template would have been the prequels as opposed to the OT. Yes. I like it.
Have something to add to the conversation? Or you just want to let us know how we're doing? Email us, show@thewarsandmore.com. That's the best place to get in on the action. But if social media is a little more to your liking, @TheWarsandMore on Twitter is always a good place to interact with us. And we're also on Facebook, facebook.com/TheWarsandMore. And of course, your portal to this and everything else, The Wars and More, is thewarsandmore.com. All right, so Lego and Star Wars is just one of those things that kind of go together.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was no surprise that the new show Lego Masters had a Star Wars episode.
Yes, they did.
I mean, no shock here.
No.
If anyone was shocked that they had one, what I really cracked up at, there was some marketing genius that went into this.
Oh, God, yes, there was.
So the Star Wars Lego Masters is episode 9?
Yeah.
Really?
The semifinal.
The semifinal and episode 9. Like, that cracked me up.
Oh, I get you. Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is genius.
Right.
So what did you think of this episode? I thought okay, let me just put this out there. I have not watched this show at all
Nor have I.
before they had a Star Wars episode. They had a Star Wars episode and I was like, oh, I got to watch.
That's what drew me in. Yeah, for sure.
And granted, it was the semifinals, but I feel like I got to go back and watch the other episodes now.
Well, I saw this thing advertised and I thought, wow, that looks like a cool show. You know, everyone loves, you know, dinking around with Legos. And
Yeah.
so I thought that'd be kind of cool to watch, you know, see what people come up with and everything. And I just, you know, I saw it. It was on my radar and it kind of fell off my radar and I never pursued it, you know. And then, somebody told me about the Star Wars episode coming up.
Oh, yeah?
That'd be you. So I made a point of watching that episode and wow, this show looks cool.
Yeah, that's the same way for me. I was like, I was like, wow, that show looks, you know, interesting. I watch a lot of Hulu and it's been advertised on Hulu.
Right.
Like, it's like, okay, it seems like something I want to check out, but I never got around to it. And then, of course, there's a Star Wars episode that shows up. It's like, well, I got to watch it now.
Exactly.
And watch this episode. I was like, wow, this is something I want to check out. It looks like a fun show. And I looked at the themes for the prior weeks.
Yeah.
Like they had an amusement park one and stuff like that. Like,
Right.
It looks fun. So I'll probably, even though I've watched the semifinals now, I'll still go back and watch the other stuff.
Oh yeah.
But a Star Wars episode. Let's dive into that. Enough about the rest of the things they might have done. But so what did you think about the premise of it? Like building a droid to begin with.
It was cool, for sure. The thing that got me was, so they're building these droids. They're building droids that, you know, have some sort of articulation to them too.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the imagination that these builders have, I was just completely blown away by, you know, as far as the droids themselves, we had one that was a little welder, an imperial welder droid, and another one that was kind of like a one-man band droid, kind of busting
That one
for
lost
tips.
me.
Yeah, me too. And then the server droid serving blue milk, which that one was really cool. There's the technical side of me that kind of like the welder droid, but the one
I think as far as in universe, something you could see there,
yeah,
I felt like the server droid was the one.
it was for sure.
I mean, it was a little Wall-E, but it looked like it could fit in the Star Wars universe. It seemed like something you could see there.
Yeah.
And the reason I say a little Wall-E, it looked a little cartoony, but it's Lego.
Yes, but I wouldn't, you know, that droid would fit right in with a Dio or a BB-8, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a really fantastic build.
Yeah.
It was really neat. Like, and I was blown away, like you said, about their creativity with this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I can make a pretty colorful ass house out of Legos.
Exactly. Yep.
and I'm pretty mechanically inclined and things like that. So I could probably make a pretty colorful house that has a retractable roof.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, this was super impressive. They're building with, you know, raw bricks. They have to let their creativity take over.
Exactly.
And they build these droids with all this articulation. Like this droid had movable arms and eyes that moved up and down. You know, the welder droid had articulating arm, and it was running on tracks.
Yeah.
And it had that front plate pop off.
Yep.
You know, so it had Imperial logo and it popped off, and there's a Rebel Alliance logo. It was pretty spectacular.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
So I thoroughly enjoyed that. Like that was very impressive, and very impressive that they can build something like that in 9 hours time.
I know. That was, you know, this format of show is kind of popular right now, right? You have the timed cooking shows, the, you know, whatever they're doing, you know, you're gonna
mostly cooking shows.
Mostly cooking shows. There's also like forging knives and swords and things too. They do the same thing, but it's
forged.
Yeah,
I think it's called
forged in fire. But it's a very popular format, and I gotta say, you know, there's part of me that was like, you know, Legos are cool. You know, this kind of format would probably be cool, but I don't know. You know, it's cool. So it was like my apprehension was gone after seeing this episode. So, you know, leave it to Star Wars to drag me into it. So
the more I looked at it though, and you see their guidance that they get, like, okay, you have to do this, and they just throw an idea out there, and they're building this out of, you know, just raw bricks. They got a wall of bricks to choose from,
right?
But they have to come up with the idea on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, how many Lego sets do you have to build to be that creative?
Oh,
with these things and know what to use where. Because there's a certain amount of that too, because, you know, I could build just something out of nuts, bolts, and you know, common materials like that, but I work with stuff like that.
Yeah.
To do it on Legos, I couldn't do it.
I know.
And like I said, I'm pretty mechanically inclined and pretty creative when it comes to that kind of stuff. I can fabricate stuff.
Sure.
But Legos are another thing because there's all these little levels to it.
Yep.
So you're watching them build this stuff, and there's tons of little flat bricks. That's the ones that gets me.
Yes.
Is those tiny little thin flat ones that they fit in there.
Yep.
How you get that kind of vision is astonishing. Yeah. And they build these functional droids using stuff like that. It was pretty amazing.
It was pretty amazing, I have to say.
And like I said, the server droid, and I was really feeling like they weren't going to get there. It kept falling off, the top, the head, and everything kept falling off. I didn't think they were going to get there.
Yeah.
And then you see the final product, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yes, it was, for sure.
All right, so the next challenge they had to build an iconic scene.
Yes.
From Star Wars.
They
had
choose
10 different scenes to choose from. And the ones that were chosen were the attack on Hoth.
Yep.
The Battle of Endor.
Yep.
And the Battle of Crate.
Yes.
So your thoughts on those? What did you really attach to? Take the judges out of it, right? Like, what did you think?
Well, for me, again, like you were saying, starting from scratch, from nothing, the Battle of Hoth, they made 2 AT walkers. Excuse me. And they depicted one getting its legs tied up from the harpoon cable, and another one that's already downed, and I just thought that was freaking amazing. So that's the one that really stood out to me. There's only one thing about that whole little set that bugged me a little bit, and that was that the power generator was like ginormous, and I never got the impression that it was that big on Hoth in the movie. So, but
right. I had a problem with the explosion on that one. The explosion that they put in there for color.
right,
That kind of bugged me because I would have liked to have seen an explosion at the power generator or at the downed AT-AT.
yeah,
That would have been more preferable for me.
yeah, I get it.
I thought their explosion just looked like, okay, it's over here.
Yeah,
Cool. Whatever. I did like the way they made the snow make it look like the snow was being thrown up and things like that.
again with the flat bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. The one that stood out for me though was the crate one. Just the way they threw up that red, it just looked cool.
Oh yeah.
I like the way that skiff looked.
Right, the ski speeder.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe they got special bricks for this or something, but that thing was like kind of coming in on an angle. Yeah.
Yeah. It was looking cool.
It was showing motion while standing still. That was cool.
Yeah. I thought that looked awesome. The Endor one I really liked, but that seemed like the easy way out in all those.
I have to agree, because you're basically just making like a forest scene, period. And then you're throwing Ewoks and a AT-ST on there, really.
Now, the AT-ST looked awesome.
It did.
It looked awesome. But like the rest of it, it seemed like it was more focused on the already made, pre-made characters. Like that scene seemed to focus on those.
Right.
You had all these Ewoks and the Stormtroopers. It's like, okay, well, if that's your focal point, I don't want to say it lacks skill, because that scene didn't lack skill. That was pretty fantastic.
Right.
I couldn't have built it. But the focal point was the characters, and I felt like that was a problem.
Yeah.
So if I were judging that, I was like, the focal point's the characters. Okay, yeah, cool. They made it look like they were jumping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like the other scenes, they made the terrain look like it was alive.
Right. That is.
You had the snow with the AT-ATs. You had the red from the planet Crate underneath all that salt, right? And that to me stood out. The terrain looked to be in action.
Yes.
So to me, it seemed easier to make it look like the characters were in action, but to make the terrain look like, you were in an action scene, that stood out to me.
Yeah.
So Crate was my number 1. Endor was my number 2. If I were judging.
Gotcha.
I just like the way they worked with the terrain over the characters or vehicles or whatever being the focal point. The terrain stood out.
For sure. All I got to say is these people that are on this show are doing some amazing work.
Yeah.
With some Legos, and I gotta say, I am impressed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do that off the top of my head.
Yeah, nor could I.
You could give me 48 hours and I'd be like,
yeah.
I made a cool house.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool. It was definitely cool. All right. Ahmed Best.
Ah, yes.
So Ahmed Best has got a show coming out. What's it called?
It is called the Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge.
The Jedi Temple Challenge.
This is going to be a game show for kids. This is going to be on Disney Plus. I'm not sure of the air date yet. And I don't think Ahmed Best was quite sure of the air date himself. So just keep your eye open for it on Disney Plus. But yeah, this is going to be, Ahmed Best is going to be playing the Jedi in charge at the temple for overseeing the trials, the Jedi trials for the kids that are on this kind of game show that he'll be hosting. So
it really reminds me, like the whole premise reminds me of like those old Nickelodeon shows.
Exactly.
Like what was it, like Hidden Temple or?
Yep.
Yeah. So stuff like that. It sounds really cool with a Star Wars player. Wish I would have had this when I was growing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kids are so lucky these days.
Yes, they are.
But yeah, it looks cool. Or sounds cool. We haven't seen anything yet, so I can't say it looks cool.
Yeah.
But he has some. We've talked a lot about the sequel trilogy last episode and this episode. And he had some comments on the sequel trilogy and the direction it's headed.
Yeah. He did. So he was talking on an interview, on an online interview with Russ Burlingham from comicbook.com. And I was just checking this out, and it seemed as though, to me, and apparently to you as well, because we kind of like talked about this, but Ahmed Best had something kind of deep to say about Star Wars in reference to why he's doing this show. So let's check this out.
You know what I'm saying? I wanted to give them something else because Star Wars has since skewed older. And there isn't very much for the kids anymore, in Star Wars. It's very much for, the millennials and Gen Xers like myself, continuing the first series, 4, 5, 6. So kids are kind of left out of these. And the kids have to go to the animated series, Clone Wars, Rebels, so forth, in order to get their dose of Star Wars. And then when they're old enough, they get to, or they do like Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace is very much a kid's movie. But the new iterations of Star Wars are not really skewed towards kids, which is something that George never really wanted to do. George was always about the kids, and he would always say, like, if you get the kids, you have fans for the next 20 years. He was very much about kids. So this idea that, the movies are for adults is a very new thing, to be honest.
Very interesting thought there. And one that, when you hear it said like that, can really make you think, and you can't help but kind of agree.
Yeah, I have trouble accepting this premise that millennials are now part of the adults that is being skewed towards.
But it's true.
Oh, so true.
Yes.
We're in that group now.
Yep.
But he's right. Star Wars was always written with kids in mind.
Yes.
Capturing the imagination of kids. And he's not wrong when he says this new trilogy has been very skewed towards adults.
Yeah.
Whether it be, what we call fan service now.
Yeah.
But it can't be fan service if it's trying to attract new fans. It's fan service because it's trying to attract the old fans. And then the kind of darkness that's been thrown into it now, the relationships the complexity of it is not something that kids are going to catch.
Or it's not going to grab them, right? Grab their attention.
Right.
I agree. I think I got to be honest, of the sequel trilogy, I think The Force Awakens probably is the best surrogate for what we saw in the past in trying to appeal to kids. But even there, you're dealing with things like patricide and stuff. It's like, man, it gets heavy fast. So
it does. And like The Last Jedi, aside from the comedic relief, like the comedic relief in The Last Jedi would grab kids. Like
Sure.
kids would be like, "Oh, cool, porgs."
yeah.
But the rest of the film, a lot of that will sail right over their heads.
Yes.
It really would. It was a very deep approach. And I think The Rise of Skywalker was way too fast paced for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, with the way everything came together in that, it was too fast paced for a lot of adults.
Oh yeah.
Let alone kids.
We've heard this a lot.
Yeah, let alone kids. Like, okay, kids are going to be attracted to the action.
Yeah.
But there are not a ton of characters there for kids to grab onto.
No, there's not. I mean,
if any, what Babu Frick?
Yeah, there's that, but I mean, we've got our core group there too, though.
Yeah, but I mean, do kids really latch onto that as kids? Like,
yes, they do, because you think about it. In episode 4, that's what we had is our core group. The Jawas.
Yeah, but what did kids latch onto in episode 4?
Luke, Han, and Leia. That's what I'm saying.
I feel like kids would probably latch onto like an R2 or.
I don't know, man. Because what you had. Let me date myself.
That's fine. Have at it.
What you had in
I need it.
79, 80, 81 is kids on the playground, out in the front yards, whatever. You're grabbing broomsticks and you're swinging them at each other. That was fun, So it was all about those core characters. When you're 8 years old, that's, you wanted to be Luke Skywalker or Han Solo, basically. That's the way I felt about it.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, I think there is stuff there for kids.
So
we didn't have all of the darkness that's involved with the sequel trilogy back then, right? So you have now all the stuff with Palpatine. All of that's kind of like, oh my God, what is this? You're watching this on screen and it's what is this? Especially the stuff at the beginning. You see the Snoke clones in the jar and it's like, as an adult, you're putting all that together. You understand what all that's about. But if you're younger, I can see you having problems processing all that, things like that.
So let me ask this: in the sequel trilogy as a whole, what is there for kids to grab onto?
Well, I you have someone who becomes a major player in the galaxy that originates from obscurity, right? which basically that's a good thing for kids, young people to kind of latch onto, right? Doesn't matter where you come from, matters what you're doing, looking ahead. And to show that there's always hurdles along the way, right? You're going to have some setbacks. That's just how it is.
So here's my question. You would have these moments. Okay. You talk about acting them out on the playground, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. You would have these moments with the original trilogy. Like, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm Han Solo.
Yep.
I'm Princess Leia.
Yep.
Do you have that with the sequel trilogy?
I think so. But I think it's with the new core cast.
Is it as impactful?
That's where I'm not sure. And I'm not sure, to be fair, I'm not a kid anymore.
Right.
So I can't, and to be a kid today is a little different than it was back then. Okay. And I understand that. So, but I would like to think that, young people can, how do you put it? I
understand the idea of like young people can have that imagination,
yeah,
but does this trilogy promote that like it has in the past? Does it promote that imagination? Does it promote that, like, okay, we've established that Rey, okay, is a character that is going to resonate with kids, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So Rey is definitely a character that's going to resonate. But did they do a good enough job of making Finn resonate? Did they do a good enough job of making Poe resonate? Or any other character in the trilogy for that matter?
I don't think it's quite as on point as the original trilogy when it comes to that.
Because Han Solo is going to have that, like, kids, they play games and you'd have like pirates, right?
Yeah.
And Han Solo is going to resonate with that. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, I'm kind of a bad guy
that does good things. Yeah.
But I'm a good guy.
Right.
Like, you didn't expect me to do that good stuff, did you?
Yeah, exactly. So
with the exception of Rey, I understand. I see it 100% of the way.
Yeah.
Rey is a character that could resonate with kids. You could want to be like Rey.
Yep.
But I don't feel like there's much else in the cast to do that. They didn't let Finn breathe. They didn't let Poe breathe.
Agreed.
And they definitely didn't let them breathe in a way that would resonate with kids.
I agree with everything you said right there. And I could probably go on for another 45 minutes on exactly why. But, when it comes to Finn and it comes to Poe, I think both of those characters, they could have
I think they let the idea of like Star Wars is for kids get caught up in antics.
Yes.
Like, it's Star Wars for kids. So we've got Babu Frick or we've got Porks, right?
Yeah.
They let it get caught up in antics.
Right.
Whereas kids before would attach to our heroes.
Yes.
There was something in there. Like, Luke had a youthful, dare I say, ignorance to him.
Well, yeah.
But he had a youthful ignorance to him. Leia had a strong, female presence that young girls could latch onto.
Self-confidence, for sure.
Self-confidence, things like that. And Han had this kind of bad boy, like, air to him, pirate, but still a good guy in the end. Something kids could latch onto.
When you're a young teenager, Han Solo was the first kid to get his driver's license, right? He was the first one getting in trouble. That was Han Solo.
Yeah, he's the one you learned a lesson from, but he's still a good guy in the end.
Exactly.
So, yeah, like, I don't feel like we got that same growth with our core group of characters in this.
Yes, exactly.
And it's a shame.
Yep.
It's something this trilogy lacked. And we've talked about that time and time again. Like, it seemed like they spent more time trying to fit in the legacy characters in a way they didn't really want to go.
Right.
But they were doing it to try and do it to get the old fans.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
It's not the direction they wanted to go because they wanted to focus on the new characters. But at the same time, they took attention away from the characters they wanted to focus on.
Yes.
We love seeing legacy characters there, but at the same time, you want to advance the story. If you're not going to make the legacy characters the core of your story, then you need to really flesh out your new characters.
Exactly.
And the only one they did that with was Rey.
Yeah. And when it comes to a Star Wars style of fleshing out a character, I think there was some flaws in the way they did that. But, overall, she's probably the most, open to us as far as like having her whole story kind of told. So,
right. Well, all I know is, as far as telling kids stories, the sequel trilogy does pale in comparison to the Clone Wars.
Exactly. And hopefully, the Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge, hosted by Ahmed Best on Disney Plus, will be an avenue to, allow kids to come in and get some of that, Star Wars on their level, I guess you could call it. So
right. Yeah, and when I say pales in comparison to the Clone Wars, I'm mainly talking about Ahsoka Tano.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Ahsoka Tano is a character that we've said time and time again, we never saw this coming.
No.
Not in a million years.
Right.
But we get the next portion of her story this week in season 7, episode 8, Together Again.
Best episode of the arc. How's that?
Yeah, but at the same time, it left me kind of like, what the hell?
Agreed. But this one sets the reason why it's the best one at this point in time for me is because now I am really anticipating the Siege of Mandalore.
Oh yeah, they set that up.
They set that up, and it was like, okay, here we go. I'm in. So, but yes, there are things that you and I have talked about on this show the past 3 weeks, anticipating how this arc was going to conclude, and we got none of it.
Yeah, I mean, our characters, Trace and Rafa, they got the short end of the stick on this one.
For sure. Totally.
I really wanted to see some resolution to their dilemma.
Yeah.
And we got none of that.
No, what we got was a really complex setup for a resolution that never came.
Yeah.
Because we had the relationship between the sisters.
What I will say about Rafa, okay, so Rafa got a little bit of evolution, right?
Okay.
She saw the value in someone else trying to help them.
Yeah, but she's still
that was the
masking
best
it.
we got.
she's still masking it though.
Yeah. There was no revelation there.
Right.
But she did see the value in what Ahsoka was trying to do for them.
Yeah.
And I while I enjoyed that, there was no resolution to, is Rafa going to continue this life?
Exactly.
Is she going to continue to drag her sister into it?
Right.
There was none of that.
I can only imagine that she is. Because
Well, with the way this ended, sure.
yeah. And with as adamant as they were about hating Jedi, I like the way they they told Ahsoka, you are what a Jedi should be. Okay. Especially after knowing what we know about her leaving the Order and all that. But I just found it a little too convenient for them to just come around that quickly.
Right. So while you led this off with like it was the best episode in the arc,
Yes.
I'd agree with that. Like it was a very entertaining episode. It had a lot of good stuff in there.
Yes.
But I think this was the least satisfying conclusion to an arc. And I may get a little flack from this, but in the entire series of the Clone Wars, I feel like this is the least satisfying conclusion in the series so far.
Of all 7 seasons?
Yes.
Wow. That's a bold
Because
statement.
this episode did little to wrap up this arc, but it did a lot to set up the next arc.
Yes.
And that to me was kind of a downfall of this episode. Like it had a lot of great stuff in there. It was a good episode, from wall to wall. But the finish, as far as wrapping up the story, fell flat.
Right.
You left 2 characters that you set up as main characters for this story arc. You left their story incomplete. Very incomplete. More incomplete than we've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, we were speculating on what was going to happen between the sisters. Like I said, for 3 weeks now, we got nothing as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, this arc spent 3 weeks getting us to care about Trace and Rafa.
Yeah. In their relationship.
Yeah,
And
and then completely ignores that to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, while I thought like the episode was good, in the middle portions of it, very entertaining. Good
Yes.
action.
Yep.
Good storytelling. Like the idea of, sending them away to save them, things like that. That was all great. It showed the nobleness of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But this episode lacked any weight for Rafa and Trace.
Exactly.
And like I said, there was 3 episodes to set up these 2 characters as something we should care about. But it ended like, haha, why'd you care about them? We're not worried about them. We're worried about Ahsoka and what she's going to do.
Right.
Look, I care about Ahsoka just as much as the next person. But in this arc, I was focused on Trace and Rafa.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I know Ahsoka. I know where her heart lies.
So
I know she cares about the greater good and she cares about people. I didn't need to know that at the end of this.
Right.
Like, I knew that.
right.
What about these 2?
Yeah, for sure. I would have liked to seen some more closure on them. You talked about the middle of the show, the action sequences and stuff. We did get we got a little bit of insight into Darth Maul, which was kind of cool. I mean, this is the Darth Maul that we're seeing heading towards the Darth Maul that we saw in Solo. So
Yeah. Darth Maul got more story points in this than Trace and Rafa.
I would agree.
And he showed up in this episode.
Yeah.
Not the prior 3.
This is true.
I have a problem with that.
Yeah. But I did like seeing that. So, although I will say, okay, I mentioned this to you earlier before we started recording, I almost feel like the Darth Maul and the Bo-Katan stuff was kind of inserted into this episode in order to lead us into the last arc.
100%.
Because it's so different from the rest of the story that they were telling us.
Well, the thing that tipped me off to that it might have been inserted after the fact, was the Crimson Dawn reference.
Ah, yes.
I don't feel like Crimson Dawn was at all in their minds before Solo.
It might have been in their minds, but I don't think there was anything solid that they put into the show. Like, I don't think there was recordings already made and stuff. I think they might have known where this is where Maul was going to be, but I don't think he was originally part of all this. So
no, not in the least. I mean, he may have been a part of this episode in the original plan, and this direction may have been part of the original plan. But I find it hard to believe that they would just leave 2 characters that they introduced, like leave their wrap up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
I mean, we walk away. There's literally zero. I guess that's too bold to say there's zero growth. But I don't feel like there was an acknowledgement of a revolution in thinking for these 2 characters.
Exactly.
It may have happened. There may be a change in the way they think.
Right.
But there was not an acknowledgement of that. Other than, like, never mind, not even other than. At first, the reaction to Ahsoka was, "You're a Jedi?" And she's like, "I left." They're like, "You can do that?"
Right. Yeah.
So, like, it seemed like they were okay with her because she left. So I guess there was no evolution there in their story, in their feeling about the Jedi, because they're like, "Oh, cool, you left. Good, you left them bastards."
Right. Yeah. And now we think you are what a Jedi should be.
Yeah. So these 2 characters that we got so invested in for 3 episodes just lacked any conclusion.
Yeah, I got a feeling that some of that was sacrificed in order to fit the Bo-Katan stuff in. Personally,
I mean, I guess we'll see when we see these next 4 episodes for the Siege of Mandalore if that was a worthwhile sacrifice.
Right.
But I would have rather have seen this story arc concluded and some growth for Ahsoka along the way, as well as growth for our 2 characters that we got this idea we were supposed to be invested in, just to find out, like, hey, psych.
Yeah, really.
So while it was the best episode of the arc, as far as, action and
the setup, honestly, the biggest thing for me was the setup for the Siege of Mandalore.
Yeah, well,
which I'm going to acknowledge that it's my anticipation of that's making me say this was, a good episode for that.
See, I'm opposed to that.
Well, that's fine.
And I say that, like, I say I'm opposed to that for now. We'll see how it plays out.
Right.
And we'll see if that was necessary. If they go on and do the Siege of Mandalore without any acknowledgement to all of these events that happened here, I'm sorry, that was dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to...
Like, I would have had a better time accepting that this is a setup for the Siege of Mandalore if there was some involvement along the way from Bo-Katan and her 2 companions.
Right.
But there wasn't. They just showed up at the end and cut the story short, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what happened. I think
so
the story
the
was
setup for the Siege of Mandalore for me here is a moot point.
Well,
I'm excited for Siege of Mandalore. Don't get me wrong, but what's with Rafa and Trace?
Right. I don't know.
What was the lessons learned here for those two?
Well,
Ahsoka has been teaching them stuff along the way.
I think they're still
what
learning
is the
those
right
lessons.
way?
Yeah, I think they've still got time to take to learn those lessons. I think that story hasn't been concluded yet. So,
in what, a damn book?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's probably something we'll never see. But
that's a problem. It's a Clone Wars story arc. Finish the story arc.
Well, yeah, I got to agree there.
I mean, this is different. Like, I'm sorry, the droids arc with what was his name? Admiral.
Oh,
Gaston,
I think, yeah.
Gaston, whatever. Sound like the dude from Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
That got more of a wrap up than this.
Yeah.
They concluded that story. This story, I didn't feel like got that.
Well, I can't deny anything you're saying, but it still got me excited to see the next arc coming up. And I think they might feel like they had to do something in order to drag Ahsoka into that.
I see that, and that's fine if this wasn't the last season of the Clone Wars.
Well,
okay, like this is it.
Yeah, I know. So they have no other chance to have, what drags Ahsoka into the Siege of Mandalore. So
this seems like an end of season teaser.
No.
Yes.
No way.
How do you say no way?
Because I'm expecting to see the next show next week. I don't know. I don't think it was waiting. I don't know. I think what they were looking for was something more than Tom Kane. Hold on. Tom Kane coming on and saying, Ahsoka dragged into the Siege of Mandalore. It's like, okay, why? Well, now we know she was being watched by Bo-Katan, and she's going to be taken because she's going to be useful to the Mandalorians, at least.
But they should have led this series. If you're going to say Tom Kane led it off, they should have opened Gone Without a Trace with Ahsoka meets 2 characters we don't give a shit about.
Right. Well, we got the part just before that. Ahsoka on her own after leaving the Jedi Temple. So, I mean, that's what we did get. So,
I just, my point is, I don't see a point to this story with that being the tie-in. She's being watched by Bo-Katan. Like, then why wait until the second? Like, why wait till episode 3 of this 4-story arc to put that in there?
I don't know. I can't answer that question.
I'm totally excited for next week in the Siege of Mandalore. It's been what I've been looking forward to since they announced this season.
I don't believe you.
What?
I said I don't believe you.
No, the Siege of Mandalore has been
Yes, it's
what I've been looking forward
it's
to.
what everyone's been waiting for. Yes.
It's what I've been waiting for this whole season.
Yes.
I didn't expect me to get invested in 2 characters for 3 episodes and then go, hey, look, Siege of Mandalore. Don't worry about those 2 characters we just introduced you to. Siege of Mandalore.
Here's the thing, though.
I didn't expect that episode.
Those 2 characters they introduced us to, and they worked on some evolution of them. It hasn't gotten deep enough for me to really be that worried about them. I'm
But
sorry.
In the respect of the Clone Wars, it has for me.
Okay.
Because we got tons of those characters along the way that we were only going to be invested in for 3 or 4 episodes. We knew that going in. We're going to see these characters for 3 episodes and they're gone. We're never going to see them again. That happened plenty over 7 seasons.
I don't know. I can't think back to certain episodes, but I know there's a lot of episodes of the Clone Wars that, as great as they were, kind of left me going, huh. Kind of wonder what was going to happen. I agree
with that. Like, there's episodes that left me going, huh. But they never just left a couple characters hanging.
Well, sure. Like I said, I can't tell you the episodes, but this has happened before. So there are story arcs that were going on, like season 3-ish. Stuff just didn't get concluded and the story moved on. It does happen from time to time. So I feel like they thought this was going to be more important to Ahsoka's character than wrapping up the story of Trace and Rafa. That's what I think.
But they took the characters that she could have got to, made a difference with. The whole thing she was going for the entire arc was breaking through to Rafa.
Right.
I didn't get a feeling like she did.
Oh, I don't think she did. I don't think she did.
Say that one way or the other.
Huh?
So put that out to us one way or the other.
Yeah. Oh. I agree, but I don't know that they felt like there was enough time to do that.
Like I said, so Gascon got more of a wrap up than this, and we never saw him again.
Right?
So I don't know. These are characters that they were setting up that we could potentially want to see more of.
We're not gonna, though.
I know we're not gonna, but you could have finished it off to where I would have wanted to.
Gotcha. I don't know. It sounds to me like you want to.
Well, I do, but like at this point, like, why should I care?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my point. Like, I felt like we were meant to believe that this is the investment we should make. And we were wrong.
Well, we were wrong to assume that anyway, right?
Yeah, and I just don't feel like that's happened to us in this series before.
I think it has, but maybe not to this degree.
Yeah, not to the level of like, hey, these are the 2 characters you should be looking at. Hey, look at these characters.
Right.
I don't think we've seen that like that. You may be right that there's been characters along the way that they introduced, made it seem like, hey, this might be a big deal, but it's not. Right. I feel like that might have happened in a single episode, not in a 3-episode arc.
Yeah, maybe.
Not that I remember.
Okay.
I understand my memory can suck sometimes, but
I'm just thinking there's probably that kind of stuff, but I'd have to go back and watch it
I mean, there's been
So-
times where I'm like, you really made me think about this character for 3 episodes?
Right.
Like, I that's happened. But I can't remember ever being like, what happens to these characters? And they were the focal point for 3 episodes. Just saying.
Okay.
While I like where it's headed, I'm disappointed at the way we got there.
Right. So
Fair?
this episode should have been a conclusion for those characters while opening up a new door for Ahsoka. And while it opened up that door for Ahsoka, we did not get the conclusion for those characters that we would have liked to have seen.
Yes.
For sure. Agreed.
All right. Well, if you have anything to add, you can always email us, show@thewarsofmore.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us, especially if you agree with me. We're also on social media, though. We're at The Wars of More on Twitter, facebook.com/thewarsofmore. You can find all that and all the ways to find the show over at thewarsofmore.com. Any final thoughts this week, Doug?
No, I think that about covers it.
All right. We'll talk next week.